This is Mile High.
Do I want to tell the story or do I want to show the message?
You've got a lot of work to do between Mile High.
The time has come where we can know
we have a responsibility, an ethical and moral responsibility.
We have to do it better in order to move people along.
Up, down, inside out.
If you get your mind right, it is not. It is a receiver of thought. Because love is my first technique.
it's now time for the show.
Welcome to the Mile High Podcast with your host, Dr. Daniel Knowles. Thank you for joining us. Wherever you are watching or listening from, make sure you hit subscribe so you never miss any Mile High tick. We are coming to you from 5,280 feet, which is where you will be in September for Mile High 12. And if you have not risen up to Mile High before, riseuptomilehigh.com is where you can get the details. If you have not reserved your seats already, most certainly do that. Our guest today is a frequent Mile High attendee, and she was on our success panel last year, which was a great contribution. She is in office just literally across town from me. Dr. Alison Bremner founded and runs Atlas Chiropractic of Boulder, and I'm so grateful she's in our town because we always are grateful that there are other chiropractors in our own town that represent the same foundational values as you should be in your town when you creates a great community of values. But she really has the goal of combining objective, science-based chiropractic care with compassion and focus and alignment with philosophy. She's worked with championship sports teams. She has her own podcast, Cultivating Success, and I'm sure we're going to talk about that a little bit today. And thank you for joining us today, Dr. Alison Bremner.
Hey, thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
We're glad to have you. I really want to say just at the start of this, it's so refreshing to have someone else in your own town that, has the chiropractic values in the heart. I know when I first was around, there was very few people that, were focused on philosophy, science, art, adjustment, subluxation. And it's really grateful. Anytime I see lists online, like, oh, look, there's Alice. I'm so happy to see someone who has, our same heart for our values. So I really appreciate that about you. And I wanted to say that first. So thank you for what you do and who you are in our community.
Hey, thanks. Yeah, I appreciate it. And you and Rochelle, same thing. It's just nice to be able to, we go somewhere and someone that you're just like, oh, I'm glad that you're here and you're not a knucklehead. So
exactly. Well, and so on that note, how did you find your way into chiropractic?
Yeah, I went to Life West. I was a college athlete. I played basketball. And so my interaction with chiropractic was very much, sports pain management, where, my first agenda was my ankle. I hurt my ankle super bad and I had a really important tournament, and this chiropractor just adjusted my ankle and it was great. And so I thought that was what chiropractic was. I got hurt, they fixed me, and I was able to play. And so I played basketball in the Bay Area and just happened to go to Life West. I was really lucky on that. I didn't realize how lucky till later. I could have chosen a different school. And as I went through school, I found out that chiropractic was more than just about pain. And I also realized that working with athletes is a pain in the ass, man. They're just like, my elbow hurts, my this hurts. And they don't want to be better. I'm talking about current athletes.
Mm-hmm.
They just want to be good enough to play. And
right.
So a lot of times, and I'm not saying that principal chiropractic is not for athletes. It's just your job becomes very challenging when you're talking to people and they just they don't care. They just want pain relief. And so I just started seeing these kind of patients in clinic. And luckily at the time we had knee, chest, upper cervical we could do in the clinic, and advanced knee, chest, elective. So I switched over from Gonstead, which I was a big Gonstead at the time, and got an upper cervical, and just the kind of cases were really complex. I felt that I was practicing chiropractic the way I was talking about it, because I just felt incongruent a lot of times when I was nervous system, your body's ability to heal, oh, here's the pain. And that didn't feel great. And so when I switched to upper cervical, the way that I was able to practice, even in clinic, just was congruent. And also I was able to see complex cases, which were interesting to me.
Excellent, excellent. So, and then was there, what was the step? Was there a step between Life West and Boulder, or did you land there? How did you land there?
Well, when I was in school, we had to do a paper. I think it was like your last quarter. And so the paper I did was on cervicogenic headaches, and I used Erin Elster's research in that paper. And so I knew she was a knee chest doc here in Boulder.
Mm-hmm.
And when I did an associateship in California for a little bit. And then one of my mentors was like, hey, did you know Erin Elster is selling her practice? I was like, I did not know that. And so basically I had on the radar Denver anyways, like just kind of, I don't know why, but it was at that time lower cost of living than California. A lot of fun stuff, outdoorsy, a lot of sunshine, things that I really liked. And I was like, oh, Boulder, Denver, how different can that be? It's a little different. But so I basically moved out here. I was able to purchase this practice, and she had a cash base knee chest practice. So it was like very easy to convert to that. So that's how I landed up here in Boulder. And that was 2012.
Excellent, excellent. So now let's talk a little bit about upper cervical to start. I think upper cervical is such an important element in the chiropractic profession, and I'm very sad in that less and less students get exposed to, and less doctors have a clue about any aspects of upper cervical, from x-ray to pattern work or any of that. Why do you think upper cervical is important?
Well, it's important because just the relationship between the neurology of your C1 occiput into your brain. I mean, there's no area that's that densely impacted by mechanoreceptors than anywhere in your body. So it's super important because, one, people, man, they have head traumas throughout their lives, whether it's a car accident, a ski accident, something happens, they have a head trauma or a neck trauma, and then they're never quite the same. And unfortunately, they go to different doctors, neurologists, and all their tests are normal, but they've never really had, their atlas looked at, the alignment and how that's affecting their neurology. And so unfortunately, they just go through life suffering. And I think there's a huge place for upper cervical. What's interesting is I think that upper cervical works hand in hand with a full spine doc. I mean, I have a doc that works here that does full spine, because I don't. There's some upper cervical people that do upper cervical and full spine. Nothing wrong with that. I personally just don't want to do that. So if I have someone that comes in and they're just, they're looking for a regular chiropractor, I just send them to my other doc, no big deal. And it works well together because the public actually think that's normal. They go to a medical office and there's like, oh, this is the cardiologist and this is the neurologist and this is, the whatever. And they're just really used to people being specialized. So I think that like when you're upper cervical doc, it does, like Boulder, how many chiropractors are in Boulder? Like 200 something?
100 plus. Let's just say that.
Yeah. So, and there's only 100,000 people that live here. I mean, per capita, we've got to be one of the highest chiropractic places. But for me, I'm like, it doesn't matter because I'm seeing different types of patients, different types of cases. And it's never a problem, even in a densely populated chiropractic city like Boulder.
Before I ask you where I want to go, I definitely want to touch on that a little bit more, because I had a very, we're both in the same town, and I had the same thought process presented to me that, oh, there's 100,000 people and there's 100 plus chiropractors, which is, do the math, it's densely populated. And at the time, new grad, I thought, well, who cares? There's lots of spines and they need chiropractic care. So there's more than enough subluxated people out of that to, for us to get care. And don't you want to be in a densely populated area where there's, a field supporting the concept of chiropractic, And so I never bothered me, but I'll tell you, at the time, saying it didn't stop me from wanting to practice in a densely populated area. And I had so many people tell me, don't practice here, don't open, you will never be successful. There's too many chiropractors. And it didn't stop me. And I got to tell you, after 25 years, it's never been a concern. There are so many people that walk in that have never seen a chiropractor before, even in a
Yeah.
densely populated area. What's your experience?
Yeah, well, I think it's also something I talk to students about is you're not for everyone. And it's been your
Right.
personality. I mean, I'm not for most people. I mean, it's just the truth of the matter. But the thing is, when you are just truly yourself and providing the care that you really want to provide, those people will come to you, and
Right.
they probably won't fit in another office. Even two offices doing the exact same thing,
Hmm.
they're still different. Your personality is different, and the experience is different.
Right.
And so I think that, yeah, it's whatever you decide your reality to be, right? If you're like, it's going to be fine and there's plenty of people to see, then it's going to be fine. There's plenty of
Right.
people to see. So
Right.
I think it's not a big deal, but I think understanding, you're not for everyone, and you are for a certain population, and you should try to attract that.
Right. Now, we've been throwing around the term upper cervical, and there are those in the upper cervical world will like cringe because it doesn't mean the same thing to everybody, right? There's lots of upper cervical practitioners, so for you, what's your focus in the gamut of upper cervical practitioners?
Yeah, so I do strict knee, chest, upper cervical. So what that means is I use thermography, and we do pattern work. So before someone gets adjusted, they get scanned. And if they need to be adjusted, we adjust them. And if they don't need to be adjusted, they don't get adjusted. And guess how much we charge them? $95. So it's $95 a visit, regardless if they get adjusted or not. We take x-rays, open mouth, lateral flexion to figure out how they need to be adjusted. We use listings like, body left or ASL. And a lot of times those just mean the same thing. Like a lot of times different listings, they mean the same thing depending on what camp that you're in. And then we rest after their adjustment. So if they do get adjusted, they go take a nap in our zero gravity chairs for 20 minutes, come back, we do a post scan, make sure we've made the correction, and that's it. That's how I practice knee, chest, upper cervical. I did TATS. I was taught by Sean Dill and Dr. Tiscarino, who was my pod doc at Life West. So I basically have only done upper cervical my whole career outside of school. I did a little full spine inside school. So I haven't, I talked to people like I couldn't even apply for a job really. Like say if something happened, I don't know, the building burnt down, I had to go to the joint or something, it would just be terrible. I wouldn't even know what to do.
So now I have to ask you this, which is because I know there's detractors that will say this. Well, is that enough? Is it enough to do upper cervical? Like, can you just do that? Does that really work? Will that could you make it that way?
Yeah, great question. It's so funny. So my girlfriend, Dr. Noor Jabara, does AO, which is another upper cervical technique. And it's always fun, like students especially ask that, right? One, yes, it is. A simple answer. It's more than plenty because there's so many people, to your point, who are sick and suffering, and they just don't know that that's an option for them. And I gotta tell you, most people, it makes sense to them when you like say to them, look, my whole goal is to not adjust you, and we check you first. And if you need to be adjusted, then we do that. And if we don't, we won't adjust you because the normal person does not like to get adjusted. The 10% who I love my chiropractor. That's a small percent of the population. Most people are scared of getting adjusted. They think it's weird. The popping and cracking is weird. So when I tell them, hey, you're holding, you don't need to be adjusted, they're like, awesome. Do I still get to take a nap? And I say, yeah, you get a nap still. And they really tolerate the adjustment to get into the nap room. So most people, they actually don't want to get it's a funny thing, but they really get really excited when they start to hold their adjustment, meaning they don't need to be adjusted and they can go longer and longer and longer. And so that's the goal. Another question that the students always, what happens if someone with a hot low back comes in the office? And I'm like, they go see my other doc. I don't, what, like, that's like saying like, what if someone came in with their toe chopped off? And I'm like, I don't know, send them to the emergency room. Like, that's not my person to see. Like they think that they have to see every single person,
Yes.
right? They
No.
say, what's your demographic? Anyone with a spine? Well, that's absurd. That's ridiculous, So you're not for everyone. And when you really, the more narrow you get to your target market, actually the more busy that you get, because people can refer. It's easy to refer when like, oh, you have migraines, you should go see this doc. But if you're like very, obscure about your target market, just kind of, we see everyone, for the average person, that's a very difficult referral. It's very hard for them to refer to you because they don't know how to explain it correctly.
Right. Right. And I get the same questions, Allison, I get the same questions, like, because I do network, and it's like, you just do network, like, is that okay? Like, you really don't do anything else? I'm like, no, I just do this. And what if a person, what you said, like, well, then I tell them, I'm not the chiropractor for you. There's this person down the street to see. If you want something else than what I do, I've certain benefits to what I do, and I'm really good at it, But
Yeah.
that doesn't mean if our outcomes mismatch what you want something else than for an expectation, then there's at least 100 other chiropractors in Boulder. So
Yeah. And forcing them into care, that will always end badly.
right. Right.
They're just gonna get upset. You're gonna get a bad review, and everyone's no one's happy at the end of the day.
Right. Now you do a podcast yourself, which I highly recommend people listen to, Cultivating Success Podcast. Tell us about that.
Yeah, it's interesting because it's all started with getting a lot of questions from students and recent grads, because it seems that they're almost even more lost than when I was in school. That may or not be true. I'm not
It's
sure
true.
if that is.
No, it's true.
Okay. Maybe I just get more questions now that I've been, in practice for a while. But they're like there's very similar questions. And a lot of times what happens is they go through school and they're in this la la land of a bunch of weirdos. They're around a bunch of weird chiropractors, and they only speak weird chiropractic. And then unfortunately, when they come out and they get into business and they don't know how to communicate with the general public, the 90% of people who don't see chiropractors. And if we truly want to help people, as many people as possible, man, you got to understand the language and understand the psychology of people and why they buy, why they choose things. And so the podcast is about marketing, money mindset, and how to kind of not be a weirdo and kind of stop doing the things that make people scared of chiropractors, because quite frankly, the public thinks chiropractors are weird. So you have to just, first of all, you gotta own that. Okay. They think that we're weird. So just don't be weird. Like, just be a normal person and talk to them like a normal person. And you're going to be leaps above everybody else, because they're just like, oh, thank God you're like normal, because I went to this other chiropractor. I hear this all the time. They're like, oh, I went to this other office. They tell me this like crazy wackadoodle story. And I'm like, I don't know why. And they're like, why do they do that? And I'm like, I don't know why. Like, I don't know why they said that or did that. We're not going to do that here. We're going to treat you like a normal person. We're going to listen to you. We're not going to make you feel stupid. Chiropractors love to make people feel stupid. That's like their favorite thing. And guess what? If you make someone feel dumb or stupid for their choices, especially their health choices, why would they want to pay you if you're making them feel bad about their choices? It's just kind of crazy. So the podcast is a lot about communication, business, mindset, and quite frankly, to push you into being an associate, because you should not open your own office right out of school. You should not. Even if you can, you should not.
So let's talk about that. Why do you say that? Why is that important? And obviously you feel strongly about that. Tell us why.
I feel strongly about it because unfortunately, I've just seen so many students think it's the only way. And I get it, trust me. There are some horrific associate positions out there, and chiropractors historically eat their young. Absolutely. I'm not saying that that's not a thing. However, every single other profession understands that they should do an associateship or an internship, whatever they call it within that profession. Lawyers, dentists, they all work for someone else first. Why? Because they don't know what the hell they're doing. You don't know what you're doing because you've been in school and you've been in this la la land for a long time where it's all theoretical. I always like to mention books. So this book I'm reading right now is called Never Split the Difference. It's a negotiation book. But the thing that I really like about it is this guy was an FBI agent, hostage negotiator, and he wanted to learn more negotiation. So he went to Harvard Business School to like audit a class. And what he found is he could just destroy these kids that were in school because they were working with the theory of negotiation, whereas he had 20 years of actual experience in hostage negotiations where you couldn't just split the difference and being like, oh, okay, well, just like, you have two hostages, you can kill one, we'll take one, that's the end of it, right? And I find that that's what's happening in school is they have theory business, theory chiropractic, no real world. They get in the real world and they get eaten alive. So I feel strongly about it because I do think that you need to understand, how business actually works, but you do have to find a good position. That can be challenging, but they are out there. There's a lot of really good positions out there.
Well, and it's interesting you say that. What I noticed along those lines is people have been in a bubble. They're in the Sherman College bubble, the Palmer bubble, whatever, and you just talk to other chiropractic students. And then you get out and you talk to, Joe Smith as if they're someone else who's in the upper cervical club with you. And talk to them like you're talking to a person that's, drank the Kool-Aid like you have for your technique. And it's a mess because they do not think like you think a different way because you've been in a chiropractic school bubble and you forget that people don't think and talk like you, and you don't know how to relate to them in any kind of way that's they will see you as an authority.
Yeah, absolutely. And this, I kind of give chiropractors a hard time, but this is true in any sort of service-based industry. So I'm talking about if you're a mechanic, you can be a private practice medical, PT, hairstylist, it doesn't matter. Typically, if you're a service-based industry person, you struggle with it, right? Because you go to school to learn how to do that service. You don't really go to school for business, but I gotta tell you, you gotta start finding mentors that you align with. So like my office, for example, is great for some associates, would be terrible for other associates. And I'm sure the same with your office, and you got to make sure that the mentors that you're learning from are living the life that you actually want to live, not that you think you want to.
Right. Absolutely. So now when can someone, find more about how to be a good associate?
I think you got to just start going to offices. I think that the biggest thing that you'll find what you don't want to do. That I think that will become very obvious. So you go in the office and you're like, ooh, I don't like that. I don't like that. But slowly, the more that you start interacting with other docs, and seeing how their office works, you can see some things that you like, some things that you don't like. I think reaching out to people, like I'm very easy to get a hold of. You can email me or, find us on Instagram, and just ask questions. And I think you got to start that as early as possible in school, because I think that otherwise you're just, if you're going to wait till you graduate and then try to find a job, that's going to be very challenging for you. You're going to end up taking something because you got to make money, right? You got to get out there and find a position, and it might not be the best for you. So I think networking with people, going like Mile High is a great place. There's a lot of docs there, and you have things like the success panel where students can ask questions. The docs are really nice there. They buy students drinks, buy them lunch. I think you have to get out of your bubble wherever you are in school.
Let's mention that because you touched on it. Wasn't I was going to bring up, but since you mentioned about Mile High, I don't remember how many you've been, but you're there almost every year, if not every. What do you think what do you love about Mile High? What do you appreciate about it?
Well, what I appreciate about it, I don't think you'll find a room with as many network docs and upper cervical docs in the same room. It's very rare. It's very rare, because what is in common, right, is the principle of chiropractic, and that you have people on stage from all walks, right? You have upper cervical people there, you have pediatric people there, you have network people there, and every speaker is not for every person, but you will find a speaker that you really relate with and like it. So I think that that's sort of with the principle that ties chiropractors together, regardless of the technique.
Right. It's so funny. Same thing. There's Gonstead people and so on. And Lise Rigney, our good friend, she says it's bringing all the tribes together. That's what she always says, which is important. We don't need to be enemies, we can be in the same room, especially because the foundation, we have the same values, even if we might be addressing it differently. So, and that's it really, the people that have the foundational principles and values at heart, we have to be in community, because otherwise the profession continues in the direction it's been going for way too long.
Yeah, and I think that that's, the common thread, but it is quite interesting, the variety of people
It
that are
is.
there. I think it's unlike any other seminar as far as the variety goes.
It is. You get the whole gamut, and yeah, absolutely. So now, maybe a random question: what's your favorite green book?
I like Our Masterpiece. I think I like it. It's an easier to read green book, which I appreciate. It's not piecing things together sometimes where it's like and obviously volume 18, which we talked about
Yes,
HIO,
yes.
but as far as an more enjoyable read, I would say Our
There you
Masterpiece.
go. So now you've got homework from Dr. Alison Bremner there. So after this, so now what are some qualities for a doctor who wants to attract associates? What do you see in someone who's like, well, I don't know what to do with an associate. How do I create an associate? What do I need to do? What does the doctor need to be like? What are your thoughts that you can share that?
Yeah, so the first thing is you gotta know where you're going, because if you don't know where you're trying to go and how that associate fits in, it's just gonna be chaos. So knowing, like, are you getting an associate because you want to make more money? Do you want an associate because you want more time? Do you want an associate because you just want to teach someone else and not practice by yourself? So first figuring out like the reasoning that you want one. I gotta tell you, if you hire an associate because you're busy, that's a disaster. That's going to be a disaster, because that means that you have no systems for them when they come in, and it's just chaos. So figuring out like, what are your goals? Like, why are you trying? So for me, I don't really like working, Danny. I think we talked about this. And so, I have associates so that I can be out of the office. And I really like seeing associates when they start to like, they'll get their first prepay. Someone, they went from being a student and someone's like, here's $3,000. And they're just like, oh my God, like they can't even believe it. Like, so like those moments, I really enjoy as far as, having an associate. So once you figure out where the heck you're going, you need to ask them where they're going. Like, why do they want to be in your office? Is it just the location? Is it because they like you as the doctor? And when you have your vision and their vision together and those match, that's going to be a good relationship. Once
Right.
you figure that out, then you have to be really organized and step by step. Like, you have to have like, this is where the light switch is and it turns on like that. Like, you have to assume that they cannot do anything. And I'm not saying because they're dumb. It's just because they've been in school where they've been told like, okay, today is this class and this is the test we're doing. And after this, we do this.
Right.
They've been told every single step. So you have to think of them like they need to be told everything. If there's not a system for it, they will do it wrong. And you'll just be like, why did you do it that way? Like, you just can't believe they did it that way. It's just because they just made it up.
Right.
They just made it up. But if you give them, this is how to do it, that I know it sounds like you're micromanaging, but actually that frees them. They're like, oh, I do it like this. And then they're done.
That's exactly it. Yeah. And then you realize, well, there's so many things that you don't actually have a procedure on. Just you do it that way and you don't have any recording of why that is. And then that makes them feel lost as a new doctor.
Yeah. An associate will bring out all of your flaws. So every single thing that you're doing wrong, or you're shortcutting, or that you're not doing correct, it's not up to whatever. And a new associate comes in and you're like, oh, this is the things that I need to like, get under control. So it's actually a nice little cleanup. Every time I get a new associate, I'm like, oh, I didn't fix that or whatever. Yeah. So it actually is helpful. And it's not for everyone. Just like, I think that people think that they need an associate, but you should only get an associate if you enjoy coaching or if you have some experience in that. If you just get an associate, I don't know. I see a lot of times where, again, docs think that they have to do something because they heard it on stage somewhere. They're like, oh, I heard that, so that's what I want. You might just be a solar practitioner your entire life, and there's nothing wrong with that.
Mm-hmm. Right, right. And, I remember having, going to one seat, having going for no CAs to one and realizing, wow, having a CA was harder than having practice members, at one point. And then I
Yeah.
went from, several CAs, which to like, oh, I have to have an associate, and like, wow, having associate was harder than having CAs because there was whole new skill set to grow, and people don't realize that. So you have to really have tools to be able to create good associates.
Yeah, your systems and procedures and understanding. And I think that a lot of times docs don't know where to start. Yeah, I mean, I think you're going to ask me this later. I mean, I do have a course on if you're a doctor and you want to hire an associate. I have a step-by-step 6 weeks course on Teachable that just basically lays out and figuring out who you are. It comes with a doc manual and an associate manual, and they're separate because you guys need to work on separate things. But the associate will love that you have something for them. If you show up on day one and they have a little manual and it's for them, and then you're like, this is your office, it's like they're like a little kid and you gave them all these things and they're like super excited about it, right? It's like because they're excited in practice already. What I don't understand is why docs don't cultivate associates more, because you have a workforce unlike anyone else. Most companies that are hiring, these people are dreading going to work. And they're just like, I need to pay, I need something to pay the bills. I'm coming to this awful job. I don't really want to work here. They're going to spend half their time trying to find another job. Whereas chiropractors have a workforce that is dying to start practicing. So like, shame on you if you can't be excited for them coming in your office and providing them with the tools they need, because you're so lucky you have people that actually want to work and they're excited about the job.
Right.
So, we sort of have to step up on that. So I don't understand why those things go badly so often.
And also right now, many of them don't have the ability to open practices. So, and they're very passionate. So you just have to create an environment that they can grow. And that's easier said than done, which means you have to put in energy. Now, if people want to get the system that you have, where do they go to get that?
Yeah, well, we can put a link in the description. It's just
Okay.
teachable.com. So it's the manual and a 6-week video, different videos going through it. But yeah, you can click on it. And I've had a couple docs go through the program and they just didn't really know where to start. And I think that once you are able to get the first associate's always the hardest, and it's always the messiest. I don't have kids. I know you have kids, but I imagine the first kid, you feel like you're messing them up, right? Like my first associate, I did so many things wrong because I was young. First of all, I was like 30 when I had my first associate, and I just didn't know what I was doing. So you'll get better and better, and the stricter you get on the systems, the easier it is. So,
Yeah.
I mean, I've had really great feedback from this, and a lot of it is understanding yourself. And what's scary is a lot of docs have been in practice for 5-10 years, and they've never, ever even thought about what truly makes them happy or why they're in practice. And so going through it, they actually discover something about themselves. And so they enjoyed that part of it. And then that makes it's a relationship. Look, I mean, when it comes down to it, that associate, it's almost like you're dating. I will say that, like, I'm very hard to get a hold of. Like, if you try to text me or call me when I'm not, you can't go. There's 2 people, my girlfriend and my associate. 24 hours, 7 days a week, they can get a hold of me no matter what. Because I'm in a committed relationship with my associate, because I want them to succeed. So if there's something going wrong, I want them to immediately text me or call me, get a hold of me, so it doesn't turn into a problem. And I want them to know that I'm there for them always. And them just know, like, they very rarely text me if they don't, like, at night or something. But to know that they can, I think that that's a huge thing.
Yep. Well, I want to thank you so much for being who you are in chiropractic, and who you are for the doctors that work for you and practice members, and also now helping more students. I know you travel a little bit more to support people, and also just for taking the time to be on this podcast with us and putting the energy you do with your podcast. So thank you so much for your contributions to chiropractic.
Yeah, absolutely. And I am going to Sherman Lyceum, so
Oh,
we can hang out.
well, yeah, we have to go, across the country of South Carolina to see each
I
other.
know. I know. I know. We'll actually have, we'll actually have that dinner.
Well, I should be able to have a meal. Yeah, exactly.
That's nice.
Just takes us going to Spartanburg to do that. So
Yeah. Well, I've never been. I mean, it's a trek out there, so
you've never
I'm
been
excited.
there.
Mm-mm.
Oh, you're in for an experience. Well,
Yeah,
excellent.
I'm excited about it, and I hope some docs I haven't seen in a while will be there. So I think it's going to be exciting.
Yeah, it will be. So I look forward to seeing you there if I don't see you before then.
I don't think we will. I will put
We
money on it,
might,
but
we might. So anyway, and thank you so much, and thank you for watching and listening. Make sure you hit subscribe, and make sure you dial in being at Mile High in September 26th weekend. Rise up to milehigh.com. It couldn't get easier. Just reserve your seats for yourself and your team. Yes, bring your team, and we'll keep changing spines, lives. Keep changing spines, lives, and minds with chiropractic.